Hey everyone, a few weeks back we did the caps limit testing guide, which focused on how he pushes the limits of the game to both improve and get results specifically during the laning phase. This guide will be just like that one, but for the mid and late game instead. Let's not waste any time and get right into it. Our first example is going to be applicable for most champions, but especially control mages. Let's begin by first looking at the champions in question. Caps is playing Cassiopeia, and here's the 5 enemy champions. Take a moment to memorize the compositions and think about a general game plan that you might make based on them. Onto the game, we'll notice that the game state is fairly even, with Caps doing pretty well himself. This has him in a position to carry, and thus he's bot trying to provide some split push pressure. As he does, we get a very valuable piece of information. Based on what you know, what do you think is the valuable piece of information here? Some of you might have the initial thought of, oh, Akali isn't here and she's the main threat. This is around the line of thinking that we need to be aware of, but we want you to focus on the enemy team composition as a whole this time. Yes, we've spotted Akali and Lee Sin on the minimap now, knowing that they can't be bottom. This means that the remaining 3 champions on the enemy team that could be here are what we'll be classifying as run at you champions. Basically, they're champions that have to literally run in a straight line toward you to deal damage or do anything. You may have concerns that Wukong wouldn't classify as one, seeing as how he can be so tricky, but any champion like him, Aurelia or Xin Zhao, that have to run at you and then dash in a straight line towards you can also be classified as run at you champions. Okay, so what isn't a run at you champ? Basically any champion that can get on top of you or lock you down very unpredictably. For example, Vi or Malphite can engage on you from an entire screen away. Or assassins like Talon, Rengar, and Kha'Zix can use their stealth and mobility to easily set up flanks on you. Anything that can reliably get on top of you and is difficult to space out is not considered a run at you champ. Let's not keep you in suspense from what happened any longer. Let's first watch the fight, then break it down. Okay, so he smurfed on them, but he did so by abusing the fact that they're all really predictable run at you characters. Here's how you can apply this in your own games. Remember that the main way that these champions can move and reposition to threaten you is only by running toward you. Since their movement is really easy to predict, you then have only one goal. You never want to allow everyone that you're fighting against you to oppose you at the same time. To achieve this, we'll be abusing the uncoordinated nature of solo queue to desynchronize your opponents. What you want to do is wiggle back and forth in front of them to bait some people to go in and some to retreat. This is where mechanics come into play. So if you're sluggish in your movement, then this isn't even possible, and you should definitely be in the practice tool. By throwing out some abilities and baiting some people in, maybe their formation begins to look a bit like this. The goal here is to get an isolated person, usually the one in front, and have a mini 1v1 against them. Then that person retreats and someone gets baited into trying to help them. Now you have a 1v1 against that player, and so on. The idea is simple, execution maybe not so much. Let's watch Caps do it in slow motion and break it down. The engagement begins by chunking Wukong quite a bit before MF and Lulu were there yet. But as Lulu arrives, Caps obviously has to run away while he got polymorphed. This puts him in an awkward spot. Both Lulu and MF are in range, threatening to deal damage or CC him at the moment. So, Caps turns to deal damage. Miss Fortune has to be afraid of his ultimate, so she kites back. This is perfect as it allows Caps to reposition and get out of range of multiple threats at the same time. Now no one is in range to hit him anymore. And here's where the baiting comes in. Running forward would just allow all 3 members to turn on him and threaten him at the same time. So instead, he kites away, allowing the uncoordination of solo queue to take place. Wukong, thinking the fight is over, turns around to run away while MF keeps chasing. This means that Caps can turn on her for a mini 1v1 until she herself starts running away. This bait made Wukong feel like he needed to help, which once again puts him in range of Caps for another mini 1v1. At this point, they're also low from all the brief 1v1s that Caps can just hard commit because Wukong's dash is so obvious to play around. They're all baited into this ultimate and quickly disposed of. Playing this fight again in real time shows you just how exceptional he is at doing this. This is not easy to do and only possible by constantly limit testing proper spacing against these types of champions. This is super important to learn so you can hard carry games, specifically as control mages. They excel at punishing run at you champions. Their abilities are much easier to hit when champions are running into them and have tons of crowd control to keep people off themselves. Alright, on to our next example. Instead of mechanics, this time we'll be focusing more on when you should be limit testing. This game, Caps, is on Ryze and has been playing the whole game fairly aggressively. Take a look at a couple of his deaths and see if you can spot a common trend among them that was also true of the previous Cassiopeia example. If you notice that he's playing extremely aggressively on the map, always near the enemy towers, then you're right on the money. This isn't because you want to fight near enemy towers, but rather what it says about the map state when you are near enemy towers. What's going on is that when you've shoved the wave into the enemy tower, you've eliminated all sources of farm for you to take. You may have likely also taken enemy jungle camps due to your shove advantage. The most important thing to remember about both kills and deaths is not the 300 gold you receive or give, but rather what is gained or lost as a result of them. If you die in the middle of the map, then there's so many things your opponent can take off of your death. They can push your towers, they can rotate to dragon easily, baron, etc. If you die near enemy towers, they have to fix their sideways, they don't have time to push, and you'll likely respawn by the time that the wave reaches your tower, so you don't even miss any farm. Nothing exemplifies this as much as this next example. As he pushes top, his team begins dying before he's even in position to pressure a tower. This is a classic solo queue situation where your teammates absolutely have to fight regardless of what's going on. He finishes taking proguides and realizing that it's a super weak move to recall and defend, he instead cuts off the minion wave so that the enemy team can't push anyway. Then he takes everything. Wolves, blue, gromp, and makes his way to the bottom minions to push that out as well. This is a perfect situation to limit test. He just took everything. As Ryze, he could very easily ult away the second he sees set here, but why would he? If you're playing to learn, you may as well go for this potential play since there's literally nothing to lose. And because he wins the fight, since he was the one shoving, the waves are already in position for his team. Now they're the ones able to capitalize and take the bot lane inhibitor. Despite his whole team dying, Caps' great macro knowledge and decision making to take a risky fight that he could have avoided put his team right back into the driver's seat. Okay, our next topic isn't so much a teachable concept, but rather a mindset that you should have when approaching teamfights as Assassin-esque champions. To properly understand, we first have to discuss what a tank's role is in a teamfight. When a fight occurs, it's a tank's job to go in and create space for his teammates to do damage. Ideally, they outlast the enemy front line so their team can come out on top. So why is this information relevant for mid lane? Well, as we said, tanking and frontlining isn't really about soaking damage so much as it is about giving your teammates space and time to deal damage. Let's give you an example to make this a bit clearer. Imagine a split fight up top. On one side, you have Maokai tanking 4 enemies. On the other, an Akali is zoning Maokai's 4 teammates by just sitting in her shroud. In this specific case, they can't just walk past her or she messes them up pretty badly. Not only that, but they have no AoE spells to punish her for sitting in her W. So the question is, who is the better tank in this situation? Obviously Akali, right? She's allowing her teammates to do free damage to Maokai while taking nothing in return. Let's take a look at a real game example. The enemy team got a pick and is now doing Baron. To stop them, Fizz engages onto the entire enemy team. Rather than looking to maximize his damage by landing a 4-man E or something and killing Lee, he instead uses it to get away and kite, taking 0 damage. He baited out a ton of abilities and wasted the time of these 4 players while his teammates killed Karma for free. Then he can rejoin his allies and easily ace the enemy team. And back to Caps. We bring this up because he's constantly looking to do this whenever he plays mobile assassins. Here we see him baiting Shyvana away from the rest of her team and tower. There's so much to learn from a situation like this. Maybe he's overtanking Shyvana, trying a bit too hard, holding his stolen dragon form instead of just committing to get away. He definitely should have ulted over the Baron wall instead to his left, as he had Yuumi waiting to heal him. Or maybe this bait was never going to work because of how far behind his team was. There's so much learning potential when you take skirmishes like these. The best part is that you don't actually need to teamfight to practice it either. Any situation where you're outnumbered is fine. Engaging skirmishes where you're having to dance around a ton of people while trying to take minimal damage is great practice for this. It's impossible to teach someone mechanics. You just have to constantly go in and fail and see what happens. Repetition is the key to success, and being afraid of looking bad or losing is the only obstacle in your way to success. By the way, we released some crazy guides over at SkillCapped, which are exclusive only to our subscribers. We have over 800 guides covering everything you need to know to rapidly improve. We also send our challengers into Elo Hell every week to see how they climb out of the most extreme scenarios with the worst teammates imaginable. All wrapped up into courses that you can watch right away. Oh, and if you don't significantly improve while using SkillCapped, you get a full refund. So, what are you waiting for? Sign up today and escape Elo Hell. And with that, we wrap up our mini limit testing series featuring caps. We hope you guys enjoyed, and thanks for watching.